the Rivian R2 is the most important car that they have ever built, and it's one that's going to decide the future of the company. Whether we talk about Rivian in the same breath as Tesla 10 years from now, or remember them like American Motors as a company that doesn't exist anymore. The R2 is supposed to be the car for everybody. It starts in the mid-40s. It is aimed like squarely at the Tesla Model Y, the default electric kind of do-everything car that people seem to default to. And I wanted to look at the R2 because I love Rivian, and I'll talk about that more in a second, to see if they had to cut the soul out of it to get the price to where it is. And I think I've got some standing to judge that. I've been driving electric for like almost 13 years, since the original Model S in 2012. R1T is a truck that made me a Rivian guy. Had a bunch of Teslas in between. My wife is on her second R1S, and there's Lucid Gravity in my driveway right now. And I was in the room in Southern California when their CEO RJ pulled back, very dramatically, the cover to the R2 and showed it to the world. So now we've had a chance to drive it, to sit in it, got a lot of opinions. And stick around to the end because the cheaper R2 trim does something that the expensive one doesn't, that I wasn't really expecting. So just to get this out of the way, I had 2 kids homesick and I could not fly to Utah for this event, unfortunately. So I sent Matt. This is Matt. He lives out in Utah, actually. Rivian held the R2 first drive event. He's our resident kind of overlander here at the company, and he's generally a harder grader on cars than I am, especially EVs. If anyone is going to catch them quietly cutting corners on the cheaper Rivian, it's a guy who actually drags his rig into the backcountry on weekends. So he drove the R2 Performance and reported back, and I trust his read just about as much as I trust my own. And the headline from him is the simplest thing that you can say about it. If you've driven a Rivian, this drives exactly like a Rivian. That is a huge deal. The big difference, unsurprisingly, is size. It feels like a smaller, lighter R1S, which for some people always felt a little bit big. It drives on the road or off-road with a ton of confidence. And being the performance version, there is a lot of power. 0 to 60 in the low 3s, and the 50 to 70 sort of passing punch comes in at like 1.5 seconds, which is insane still for a family SUV. Rivian dialed in the Regen 2, sort of none of that grabby lurching that you tend to get in a lot of SUVs. It's quiet and easy on the street, which is exactly how any good car, let alone an EV, should feel. When Matt went to this event, the thing that I wanted to see when I thought I was going was the suspension. The R1 has an air suspension, and that compliance, I think, is a lot of what made the Rivian feel special off-road. So my worry, would the cheaper R2 sort of lose that feel? It doesn't. It's running on adaptive dampers instead of air. And Matt said the gap between the modes is like real. Leave it in sport and it's properly stiff. Soften it and it turns into a very cushioned, easy cruiser. And that was the answer that I wanted because it means they didn't cheap out where you'd feel it. If that suspension sucked, that whole drive would suck. And while we tested this off-road, these cars are going to be driven on freeways, in Costco parking lots, in school parking lots. So that drive has to feel smooth, sort of on the pavement. Off the pavement, at least for Matt, is his whole world. And he came back very convinced. The R2 is seriously capable. He took it up trails no normal owner would probably ever bother doing, and it wasn't anywhere near its limit. The one real ceiling, probably shouldn't be a surprise, is ground clearance. The drivetrain and suspension have plenty left, but unlike the R1's air suspension, the R2 is, like I said, on fixed springs. So what you got is what you got. Unless you wanna, slam it or lift it, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. Same as almost any other SUV. Fit and finish felt like a real, properly built car. I did say there were a few creaks and bangs when you're really working it off-road, which most every other Rivian I've ever driven does as well. The part that would sell me, though, has nothing to do with horsepower, and it's a part that Matt really couldn't test for me because he doesn't live my life, and that was the room. Storage space for people and things. This thing swallows gear. The backseat folds like dead flat. And for a guy who's got 3 kids, 2 dogs, and we can split between baseball games and recently a lot of dance recitals, I care a lot more about that than I do another 1/2 second to 60. There's a rear window that'll drop down into the tailgate. Rivian also happily sell you a rooftop tent and a camp kitchen, which is, I don't know, kind of the Rivian ethos that probably most people will never use. but it can. It actually reminded me of the California, I don't want to jinx the R2, reminded me of the California mode that the Fisker Ocean had. Kind of a cool thing. So how does it stack up against the Model Y everyone's actually going to be cross-shopping this with? At least I'm assuming, because this is what I would want to know. Trim for trim at the top, basically the same money. There's always some options, you can tweak that. The Model Y wins where you'd expect. It's lighter, more aerodynamic, and on the highway where wind resistance is everything, it slips a little less. But here's the part that doesn't compute though. The R2 is boxier, taller, and close to 800 pounds heavier, and it still matches the Model Y on efficiency and beats it on range. A brick of an SUV holding even with a sleek Tesla on energy use shouldn't happen. And Rivian's powertrain people pulled it off anyway. Charging used to be the one thing that Tesla had just locked up. The R2 has NACS and now uses the same superchargers, so that edge is mostly gone. I'll be putting that one to the test and kind of running the charge speeds myself once we get one, here in the studio. The one place where the Tesla walks away and wipes the floor with pretty much every other car is on the self-driving side. Tesla's full self-driving, it's still the best system in the business right now. It's not perfect, you still have to watch, but it'll handle city streets, traffic lights, roundabouts, pretty much the whole drive that no one else is really getting close to that. Rivian's answer is still more limited. The R2 does give you genuine hands-free on the highway. Works, I think, more closely to GM Super Cruise than to full self-driving. The version that actually goes toe-to-toe with Tesla, the point-to-point system that'll drive you door-to-door, still a promise. So if self-driving is a thing you care about most, Tesla wins today. It's not particularly close. But again, as somebody who's driven Rivian for years, they have delivered on their promises. So I would never buy a car based on something that's going to come down the road. But if it's not really paramount to you, the self-driving stuff, know that I do trust Rivian to eventually get there, but still where Tesla is now is still miles ahead. After that, it comes down to what you actually want. The Model Y is clearly the safe, efficient sort of commuter, parked on every street in America, and a base one is still cheaper if you don't need the power. The R2 goes better where the pavement ends, tows and hauls your entire circus, and doesn't look like any other 10 cars in your school pickup line. At least not yet, I'm sure it will in like 2 years. If your idea of an adventure is, carpool lane, buy the Tesla. If you want to drag the family to a trailhead and sleep 2 on the roof, nothing else comes close for this price. Which brings me to the only thing that would actually make me pause before putting money on and recommending it, and it's about timing. So right now, the only R2 you can buy is that top performance one. It's around like $58,000. The roughly $10,000 less, $48,000 standard one that I think most people are waiting for won't show up until allegedly 2027. And here's where it gets strange. The cheaper single motor version that's coming is expected to outrange the pricier performance one. So if max range is going to be a priority, the one that you can buy today might not be your answer. On top of that, sort of back at Rivian's AI Day, they announced LiDAR, a next generation sensor suite coming to the R2 by the end of this year. But the LiDAR and upgraded hardware lands within months, and that's a physical sensor built into the car, not a software update that you can kind of download during the day. So is the answer to wait for, the better, cheaper, longer range one, right? Waiting is obviously its own gamble too. Rivian burns through serious cash every quarter. And the R2 is a car that decides how strong this company gets. Volkswagen is pouring billions in to back them, and there's a real path to where this thing sells and Rivian turns into a really stable, serious company. There's also a version where you wait 2 years and the company looks very different by the time that R2 arrives. So you buy one now, you own a slightly older hardware, and it's crazy fast, or you hold on and kind of bet where Rivian's going to land. So the question I asked at the beginning, did they cut the soul out to hit that price? No. Rivian nailed it, and it wasn't a surprise to anybody who's been following the R2 along from its development. The R2 drives like a Rivian, goes where Rivian goes, and hauls your whole life like a Rivian for tens of thousands of dollars less than the R1S in my driveway. The only thing it can't do is seat 7, so if you got a third row of kids, stick with the bigger version. For everyone else, this is the one to get. As someone who's owned every single Rivian that they have made, there's always been a reason to tell somebody not to get it. For the R2, it's the first one I can confidently say, this is the car that probably everybody should get.